Okay, welcome to today's training, which is going to cover the contracts admin training session, which will show you how to manage contracts in the system, create new contracts, and manage the contract templates that you can hold in your account. So when you log into the BidSync system with your username and password, again, you'll always be directed to the Home tab. But where our training is going to cover today is the Contracts tab. Now, this is the place that holds all the contracts in the system. This is where you can search for contracts, look at the contracts, edit contracts, and create contracts based on your permission. So if you're a user that has access to manage contracts by creating and editing, this is the training that you'll want to make sure that you're attending or that you listen to the recording after you've received it. So to start off, we're going to talk about searching for contracts in the system. So if there is a contract that you're needing to find so that you can review the contract documents to see what the SOW was, maybe the terms and conditions, when the contract expires, you have access to come in and to search for those contracts. Everything up top in this search bar is what you will be able to search off of. Now, I'm in a sales environment, so it may look a little bit different with our search options, for instance, qualifications and departments, but it functions the exact same way. So you can search by title and description. So if you were looking for a contract for janitorial services, you could run a search just off the keyword. You could also search directly off of the contract number if you had that. You could search for a user that is connected to the contract. So if your specific user is tied to a bunch of contracts in the system, you could come and search for those contracts related to your user. You can also search based off of suppliers by using the vendor management tool to search through vendors in the system to see if there are any contracts tied to those vendors. And this will just bring up a search box to search for the vendors. It looks familiar to what you've been searching with so far. You can search by contract type. Now, there will be 3 additional types that we're adding into your tool that you'll be able to classify contracts off of as well as search off of. But our sales site right now just is showing standard. But again, your account will have different contract types you can search off of. You can also search off of departments. If your account has been set up with departments, then you'll have that ability. Even if down the road you add new departments or decide to use departments, this option will still be available. You can even search off of qualifications, so vendors that are tied to specific qualifications. So if you're looking for MBE vendors that have been classified in the tool and you want to see if they are connected to any contracts, you can run a search off of that, as well as any pre-qualified vendors that you may have joined into a contract with. You can also search based off of the contract expiration date, or like a date range of when contracts will be expiring. So if you maybe want to run a report on contracts expiring within 90 days or a month period, this is a great way to run that generation or run what's held in the system with that expiration. You can do classification codes, and the classification codes follow the NIGP code system. You can search for the NIGP codes the same way that you would do when you're creating a solicitation or searching for a vendor in the tool. You'll just type in a keyword. If there's anything that comes up that matches your search, then you'll just select that box and add at the bottom. And that way you're able to search off of a classification code. You can even search off of active or archived contracts in the system. So if there's contracts that have expired and you archived them, that data is still held in the system for you to review. You can even include contracts that are expired, but you can view off that option as well. Now down below is the search result that I received, and so this is the solicitation that we're going to look at, or sorry, the contract we will be looking at. Here on the search screen, we can see the contract number. the title. We can see the supplier that the contract is attached to, the expiration date, the department in this case, because we're using sales, it's tied to a department, the contract type. We could edit and archive here. Now, if you select on the link of the supplier's name, it will take you into the vendor management tool where you can see specific data about that vendor. You've seen this in the previous trainings, if you've been in other trainings where we're viewing vendor profile. So here we can see the vendor's name, their address. If they've had an FEIN number, we can see that they're one of our preferred vendors. We can see the contacts on the account. If we wanted to view their qualification information, we could see that here. So we have access to that data just by selecting the vendor's name. If we actually want to dig inside the contract to see the information that was attached or created by the creator, we'll click on that link and it will take us inside to the contract details page. So here we have all the details of the contract. We can see when it started, the visibility, so it's for our agency only, the expiration date, the total contract amount, who the contact is within our agency, the supplier, the solicitation that this contract came from, and we can even click on that link to the solicitation and it will take us to the actual bid details, so the solicitation details of what was added and created during the time of that solicitation, so that we have that all to review. So that's a great feature when you're connecting your contract to a solicitation. You're able to access the solicitation data that the contract was built off of. The classification codes, we can also see kind of a history. If any orders for the contract have been made, if we're using the purchase order tool, which you don't have access to, so you won't see any ordering history here. It will just show that box letting you know that there's no orders that have been made. If we scroll down, we can see contract documents if any had been attached and the contract line items. So these are the items that we can purchase from the supplier. So we have janitorial services for the Secretary building or SEC building. We have janitorial services for the UDC admin building, and we can see the price of the contract.
Question.
Yeah.
On your order history, instead of doing a contract pay request and they utilize a purchase order that will be tied to that vendor and to that contract, will it begin to establish a history of orders?
So your purchase orders are going to be done offline. You're not actually using the purchase order tool within BidSync, which means that it will not track that data. So if you are wanting to track a purchase order file, you could upload it to the contract itself, but normally your purchasing is going to be done offline in the system that you're currently using to do that, which means the history will not be documented here in the BidSync system.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, so just looking at this data, there's no contract documents attached, but a typical contract would have contract documents because you would be uploading the document that the vendor has signed, so the contract template or boilerplate with the terms and conditions, maybe a scope of work. So all of the documents that you need to have contained in a contract template, you would have held in the system so that you could come in and download and view that document. The line items are great because it lets you know what you can purchase from the vendor and what that price would be to purchase it. Now, because we have edit rights, we are able to edit the information in this contract that we're viewing. And so by clicking edit, we can come in and make changes. So if the contract expiration date changes, we can add a new contract expiration date. We can leave a note saying the expiration date changed from 2-26-2020 to, so you can make a history or documentation of what changes you've made. You can add in additional contract items if you needed to. You could add in additional documentation by choosing a file off your computer. Which again would most likely be the contract documents or documents you're wanting to hold about the vendor on the contract itself. So here's the document I just uploaded. I can set whether that document is private or public. Now with the public contracts in the system, those contracts are viewed and can be viewed by vendors. So vendors do have a way to search for contracts in the system. And so because of that, if there are contracts that you do not want to be made public or documents you do not want to be made public, you will need to make sure to select the private box. You'll set an expiration for this contract document. The great thing about setting an expiration date is that the system will send you a notification 30, 60, 120 days before that contract expires. So within your account, we've set up an exact number of days before the contract will send you out a notification. I believe it's 30. Does that sound right, Andre? Or did we change that?
Claudia
Does 30?
Claudia and Fran are feeling like it's 60.
It's 60. Okay. I'll double check that, but 60 days before this document expires, you'll get a notification letting you know that you need to come in and take a look at the document because it's expiring. You also receive a notification on the contract expiration date. So 60 days before the contract is expiring, you will receive a notification as well letting you know so that you can come in and renew the contract and renew contract documents. If you have to ever replace, archive, or delete a document, you have that ability. And you can also add contract attachments. Now, both of these sections do the same thing, but if your terminology is different for different document types, then you have that option. So maybe your contract documents are the actual documents that the vendor signed, which contains the statement of work and the SOW, and maybe contract attachments would be their licensing and information that you want to hold on a contract level. But both areas allow you to put in an expiration date to receive a notification. As with anything in the system, you have to put your password in to save that so that the system can validate that you have the right to make edits, to make changes to the contract. So we can see that it's been saved and we can return back to the contract section. So here's the document or the contract we were inside of. But right on this page, if you needed to, you could come in and make edits, or if you archive, that basically removes it from the viewing in an active status to now being viewed in a archive status. If you need to view for line items or items off of a contract, you can use the search item section. So we looked at searching for contracts, which we were searching for contracts as a whole. Now inside each contract can have a set of items that we can search off of. So right now the only items that we have are the 2 items that were on that contract, but we could search for them by a title, by a contract number, by the supplier, by a contract type, and by classifications that are tied to the item itself. This shopping cart feature, you'll just go ahead and ignore. This is if you're using the rec to purchase order tool, which is not being utilized by the city of Tallahassee. But this feature still allows you to come in and search off of the line item so that you can view the item detail. So if I click on the line item itself, here's the item detail that I can view. I can also deep dive into the contract itself if I needed to. So I could come back into the contract and review all the contract detail. You even have a view change box where you can view all the changes that were made. So you do have a history of who made those changes and when. So I can see that The description did say test. The previous expiration date was February 27th, 2020. The description was changed to this and the new expiration date. You can also see that I added a contract document and the expiration. So there is a history of any changes made on a contract level, and you'll just view that under View Changes. So we talked about searching for a contract by either the contract as a whole or deep diving into the items of a contract to view the details of the item that you need to purchase. What we're going to talk about now is creating a new contract, and then we'll come back and talk about contract templates. Is there any questions before I move on?
I do have a question, and I don't know, you may cover this as we continue. I don't know if I missed it or not, but do we have the ability to upload current contracts?
Yeah, you would have the ability to add those in, but it's a manual entry. So I will show you how to add a contract in, which means any of your current contracts that you're wanting to have held in the system, that might be a good use of your time for training to add those live contracts into the tool. So you're getting practice of actually entering that contract data. But there's not the ability to do an import without a cost. And so right now it's going to be a manual entry of that information.
Okay.
Keith, if I can say one thing, now remember our repository of records is on base. So we're not going to be loading a lot of individuals, if you support me on this or back me up on this, a lot of the individual ones in there, because every time something would be changed in on base would mean you'd have to come back and update it here. So on base is our repository. So pretty much it's from here forward on the contracts, correct?
We could view it that way.
Is that how you foresee it?
Being that our summer intern is gone, you know, it's kind of tough, but I was thinking that there might be some benefit in having and taking advantage of expiration dates.
Okay.
What I have.
Okay.
I mean, with respect to what you were saying, Fran, I understand that, but merely the upload of new contracts to support the expiration date.
Oh yeah, but like I said, all the old ones, those are the archives. Those are totally on base.
Would we still send the information to Tasker once we go live to add those contracts to the contract log?
Once we go live, our contracts are going to go into here.
Okay.
And Shannon will be showing us some functionality on, you know, how we set them up.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the information I think you will see, because I've only played with it briefly, is that a lot of the information comes directly from the solicitation. So you don't have to key a lot of this. Okay. I think we're ready.
Okay, so under the contract section, to create a new contract, you'll select New Contract and New Contract. If you were in the process of creating a contract, you would get that box where you can continue editing, or you could start fresh and create a new contract. So I'm going to just create a new contract for us so that you can see how it works. The contract type in the training system, we're showing standard. However, in your tool, once it's been added, you will have multiple contract types to search from. So there will be a drop-down box here for you to select a contract type based off of the type of contract you're creating. The title is a title of the contract itself. So this could be part of the solicitation number. This could be just a basic of what the contract is for. So my example last time was janitorial services. So for this contract, we're going to say it is for cleaning supplies, or we could even do office supplies, which might be easier. So for office supplies, we're going to give it a contract number, a start date, so when the contract starts, when the contract expires based off of the contract terms. So the double arrow is for years, the single arrow is for months. The total contract value. Again, if departments aren't set up in your count, you most likely will only see statewide, meaning that it's for everybody in the system. If you do set up departments, then you'll have access to choose from those as well. You'll set up a classification code that helps you in searching. So if you have and if you're noticing every time I'm loading, it's getting every time where we have over there and I'm just going to search which solicitation variable in this environment. So this didn't bring over any line items or a supplier, which means I'm going to have to manually enter it. So I will add a supplier. And that supplier will come from, again, searching through that vendor management tool, which you've seen quite often already in the system. So you can add in a vendor by their name, keyword, location. You can even search for specific vendors off location. If a vendor doesn't make sense, you can even using that vendor, which is the ability to add an update vendor that you can attach to a contract. For example, this is to select the vendor. So we can see I've attached one vendor to this contract. If this contract is for multiple vendors, I continue to add a vendor here. So that each time where you have a contract, if I name the trash can is where you can remove a contract to use. We'll do one more. And you can switch up the supplier report. Again, we'll want to remove classification. We're going to classify this next item, so we can remove it here and select the application. And if you are accustomed to using the NIGP code number, you can go ahead and just type it in. If you are not aware of the number, just use the keyword when using it to search for those classifications. You can continue to create contract items, or if you're done, you'll just select that. The contract document section, again, is a section that houses the contract template, contract boilerplate. This is where you would upload the signed contract so that you have to choose and attach your expiration date because you want to make sure you get application of contract expiring. So you have an date. And if this document needs to be private, meaning you do not want it to be a public document for vendors to view, you can select private here. You can continue to upload documents, and you can reorder those documents. The import template, I haven't ever used, but there's a template that you can pull in from the contract template section and add it there. Again, you can reorder the documents. The attached contract attachments is very similar to the contract documents. However, if you have a different formal name for other documents that may need to be attached to the form or to the contract, you can attach those documents here. So I'm just attaching the pre-qualification form that the vendor completed to participate in the solicitation so that I can hold it here to show that they were pre-qualified. I can even set an expiration date for that. So if that qualification form, so they're only pre-qualified for a certain amount of time, I could set up a complete separate expiration date for this document that is different from the actual contract document. And again, I can make that private. I can continue to upload, reorder if I have a few documents held here. And then to save everything, you always have to sign with your password and hit submit. And that will create a contract. Once you create, yeah, go ahead.
Can we create multiple contracts of one solicitation?
Yeah, so you could attach, you could just select the solicitation again on that contract for whatever one you're creating. You'll just do a search and then create that contract. So for instance, with my new contract here, all you have to do is search for a solicitation. And you can see that the one I used for the lost contract is still here. It's not removed. So yes, you can continue to create multiple contracts for the same solicitation if you needed to.
Will it be listed as the same contract number?
No, you're going to determine the contract number. So whatever is your current number schema for identifying contracts, you'll want to use that same number. unless you decide that the BidSync contract system is going to have a separate contract numbering schema or system within this tool. Now, once you create a contract, that contract does not automatically move to an active contract. It actually comes under this pending contract section. And this section is where you can then review the contract that we just created. So here's our office supplies contract. So we can review it here to make sure all the information is correct. If there's a workflow, this is where the workflow would take place. We can edit or return back to our list. And once we're ready, we can release the contract. So this one doesn't have a workflow associated to it in my sales environment, but if there was a workflow associated, it would function the same way as releasing a solicitation into a workflow. You would check the box and then release it into a workflow.
To be approved and signed, and then we'll get a notice that, you know, it's been executed. So in essence, we need to put in pending contracts anyway, and then when we get notification that it's been executed, we can come back in and release it. And I guess legal would have to go into this system to review it and approve it.
So it depends on how you want to do it. And Andre, this is up to you guys, where maybe legal's still doing their process offline. And then once legal has approved it and signed it, then the process is to come and input it into the system, where it would still be in pending, but then you could just automatically release it without it being approved, since it was approved ahead of time. Or there could be a workflow for legal or a workflow approver to approve it before it actually goes live.
Is there workflow in the system for this part of the system?
There is a workflow, but you guys didn't set one up. So we never set up a workflow for the contracts piece. So if that is something that you're deciding that you now want, then we can definitely add that in.
Okay. Well, I think we're going to have to talk about amongst ourselves what's the best process flow that we think works for us.
Okay. So let me show you how a workflow does work. So you'll select release, and then when you select release, to ready it into a workflow here. So you would have to ready it, put your password in. It would go through a workflow. In this case, there was no workflow, so it just automatically approved, and then I can release it. And by releasing it,
that's the way it'll work.
Go ahead.
Now.
Yeah, so that's the way it will work right now, because there's no workflow in place on the contract end. So if a user comes in and enters a contract, it will move to pending first, but then they would come in and just automatically be able to release it, because there's no workflow stopping them.
When we go in and let's just say we get the approval from legal and it's executed, we can come back and put the contract back in, and once we release it again, is it going to be sent to the vendor or any number of vendors based on the fact that we released it?
Yeah, so if it's been made public and you put in your password and hit submit, it's now been released, which means it's now moved over into a public or a current contract. And it's now visible by the vendors because it's been made active, unless you've made it private so that vendors aren't able to see it or any documents. But in the case that this is a public contract, it would be viewable by the vendor.
Well, I mean, nothing's going to be, see, we automatically mail a copy of the contract that's been executed to the vendor. What I'm wondering is if we put that contract in and fill out the information and go in and release it, will the vendor be notified again?
I believe the system does send out a notification to the vendor that's attached to the contract. I can double check on that for you, but I believe the vendor does get a notification in the system.
If you could confirm that, that would be very helpful.
Yeah, we wouldn't want any duplication.
Okay, yep.
So Robert, I'm thinking when we ready it, that's one, when we release it,
Mm-hmm.
if it gives them, good for us.
Well, it's good, but on certain contracts that I've had in the past where we've used a similar system, we mail it out and then they get notified again and they double the order.
Right.
That's what we don't want.
Right, but for a contract, if we stopped mailing them manually and just let this system send it electronically,
True.
we'd be okay.
Yeah, we just have to notify the people in the so they wouldn't mail it back out. Okay, thank you.
Yep. So now we can see that my office supply contract is an active current contract in the system. So we got there by creating a new contract. That new contract moved to a pending contract status where it had to be released and then either go through a workflow or not go through a workflow, depending on what's in place, and then released live. And once that release happens, it moves to the current contract section. We're now going to look at the contract template. And this isn't a feature that's highly used. However, you definitely have access to it. This is basically a location where you can come in and set up your individual clauses for your contract. And then you can take those clauses and combine them into a contract template to add to your contract boilerplate or your final contract for signatures. So what you're looking at right now is a list of clauses that are held in the system. If we click on that clause, we're able to see the clause paragraph. We can edit clauses if we needed to, so we could edit the information in the clause. We could continue to add multiple paragraphs to that clause. We could reorder the clause if we needed to and delete. You can also copy a clause over or archive a clause. I'm going to just show you how to create a new clause so you can see how to create it, because right now your system doesn't have any clauses in it. But if you wanted to start adding clauses here, you could definitely do that. So you'll create a new clause. You'll put in the title of the clause. I'm just going to copy some information over. So that's the title of our clause. I'm then going to put in the information that the clause needs to contain, so the actual clause itself. So there's all the data. I just copied this over from a Word document. And then what number or letter this clause is going to be tied to. You could also add additional items. So this could be A.1 or B, however you want to identify it. Copy or directly type your clause in to the box. You could reorder this. So if we needed to move it, we could. And then save. Remove this blank. So now I believe this is the new clause that I just created. So you can see that I have the title of the clause, A with the information, and A.1 with additional information. So each clause will have its own section. And then to create a contract document or generate a contract template, you'll select the Create Contract or Generate Contract. You'll type in the document name. So, and then your header. You'll then select the clauses that apply to this contract. So you don't have to select them all, just the ones that apply. You can reorder the clause if you need to show them differently in the tool. And then you'll select Generate. When you generate, it's going to create a Word document below that has pulled in all that clause data. Let me bring that over so we can see it. So we can see here is my document header, and the title or the document name that it's going to be saved at is up here, just so you can see where that came from. So here comes up to the document. When I save it, the document header is the actual document form name. And then you can see all the clauses and how they've pulled in.
Question.
Yes.
This is to be internal.
Yes,
When
this is internal only.
set up the bid, and we go through and we have, you know, section 1, section 2, section 3, and all that. Are we going to have to input the different section clauses? Do we have access to different ones where if we do an RFP that is got a MBE waiver, we don't select that MBE section? Or how are our RFP boilerplates going to be set up? Because looking at what she's doing, our boilerplates in some instances could allow us to choose the clauses we want to put in.
What we're doing now is we're going through the different bids, RFPs, truly extract the language for standard contract.
Same in all of them.
Right. So that's going to be one portion of it.
Okay.
Anything special or supersedes or whatever is going to be its own document.
Where we can go pick.
Right.
Okay.
And then your scope of work is going to be over here. So you will be able to change what you need to. So yes, there will be some latitude for you to be able to go in and modify this. But again, with this one, we haven't really started on the contract doc yet, but with this one, we're going to be doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Try to uniform as much as we can, and then you only have to do the exception.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, my question here internally, can we do this, like I said, and having these clauses, like the first 4 pages, like Pat Hurley wants? Can we go ahead and do it? And then where we have the space for insert vendor, can we go ahead and just do it and then have them come in and insert the vendor and the morsels of information needed? Is it easier to do it that way, or is it easier to do it totally offline and then upload it?
I don't know, because like construction for electric is 4 pages. Boom, that's it. For other RFPs, it's 16 to 20. Because it kind of goes back and details all the snippets that are in there. Now, we're doing comparisons between the different boilerplates. If we do comparisons with the similar contracts for bids and RFPs for services and or commodities, we can set up a boiler contract for the different types, but then allow you to pick clauses based on what you're doing, because the commodity is going to be different from the service.
It will be, and that's where, you know, there's still the human element involved.
Right.
We just need to be extra careful
Yeah.
to making sure that we include everything that needs to be in there and not include what we don't.
Well, I'm thinking once we get further into the comparisons, the RFP or the bid or whatever form we use for a commodity shall include, and we can put some kind of asterisk or A, you know, for RFP commodity, you need to choose these or add these. For bids, choose or add these, so that it makes it easier for the agent to go back and think, well, do I need this or not? Rather than putting it in and it's not needed.
Well, I know a lot of this will be able to talk offline,
Yeah.
but Andre and I and Claudia have gone through a lot and done a lot of comparisons and a lot of contrast between what is in something, what's not in something, what's should be standard and what should be an exception.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, again, offline, we can all meet
Okay.
and make sure that it's excellent questions.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Is there any other questions before we move on?
No.
Okay. The next thing I want to show you is kind of moving away from the contracts tab to show you a feature inside the source tab, view bids, to be awarded bids.
Oh, your screen is frozen.
Oh, it is? Okay, let me pause and reshare. Did that reset it?
Yes.
Okay, so let me show you where I went. I went to source, view bids, the to be awarded bid section. Now, when you are awarding a solicitation, there's a feature that you can select to push it to a contract, and we'll see if this has it open. Yep. So add bid award to the contract manager. You will want to select that so that it moves over into the contract section for you to associate the solicitation to a contract that you're building off of. So make sure that when you're awarding, you'll always select this, add bid award to contract manager. You can even begin typing in a contract number here so that you have it ready to go. Usually, I believe it will take the first part of the bid number. So this DHS is kind of what it had displayed for us. So you can start building off of that, or you can erase it and type in your own. But by doing this, it will then put that solicitation over into our contract management tool so that we can start building a contract off of it. So if I select this, it takes us straight into our contract that it kind of already started putting together for us. And then it's just a matter of editing the information and going through kind of this wizard tool to set it completely up. So if we're looking here, we can see that it already attached the solicitation, it already attached the supplier, and it already brought over my line item. So this is a quick way to just build a contract off of an award.
Mm-hmm.
And it already brought in your classification codes, so you didn't have to search for classification codes. It gave it the title, which is the title of your solicitation, and created the contract number, which I believe was the solicitation number. So again, if you can, that's definitely a good way to start building a contract. And it was, again, directly inside the source tool. So you select source, view bids, and this happens after you've done an evaluation and you're now ready to award. So you'll come to your to be awarded bid section. You'll select the award. And this means you have already chose who your vendor is going to be. So if you don't know how to do that, you'll actually select that inside of this link. So after evaluations happened, you'll come into the link of the offers. You will select the vendor that you're going to award to, or you could select to multiple vendors if you needed to. If you're doing a multiple award, so you could add a multiple award for suppliers. And that way you could select multiple suppliers to award to. You'll then go down to the bottom and close out. And then when you come over to award, you will see those two vendors that we've selected to award to. So here's the two vendors I've chosen to award. And then I'm going to make sure the add bid award to contract manager is selected. The contract number already kind of has been created for me. You can change that. Type in your password, hit award bid, which will award that solicitation to that supplier. But then I can also directly start creating the contract from here. So select edit. Select your contract type. In your case, you'll have 3 contract types. Hit next, and then it will take you to that template to start completing. But as you can see, it did a lot of work in bringing over the data again. So,
Question.
yes.
Go back a couple of screens to where you selected the multiple vendors, and you said then there's the contract number or name or whatever.
So once I selected award, or when I was inside selecting the vendors to award to?
Selecting the vendors to award to.
Okay.
And then you were able to put a contract number.
Oh, that was on the award screen. So
Okay.
once I've selected who to award to, I'm just going to close out of this. Then you select award. I need to find one that says award here. You'll select award.
Okay.
And right here, it brings over a contract number, which is this first part of the bid number.
Okay,
But you could remove that and type in your own. Yep.
So here, y'all, here is where, since we have a different contract number per vendor, you just have to go back in and duplicate, because we're going to have this is the new contract number.
And this is only if you're choosing to create a contract off of an award. You could select none, and then go ahead and award, and then come in and create your contract from scratch and connect it to the bid if you needed to.
So we could have multiple vendors and just select none.
Yeah.
Okay.
But if you have multiple vendors here, then you'll be able to create a contract for those multiple vendors. This way is just nice if you want to already bring over all the data so that you're not having to fill out as much, but you could select none and then just freeform your own here.
All right, now question. In the event we have some citywides where we might have engineering services and might have 8 different vendors from an RFQ, and they award a contract to each one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Once we create a new contract, is there a way that we can copy that contract and just change the contract number and the vendor name?
So
it just copies everything over.
Yeah, so right now there's not a way to copy it. There's not like a copy functionality.
Okay.
But if the details are the same as the contract that you've built out, you'll just add the multiple suppliers, and then you'll add each supplier's signed contract as a contract document.
Okay.
But it's going to have a different contract number.
Yeah, if it has a different contract number and everything, then you'll need to create a new one each time, because this is tied to one contract number.
Okay.
Okay. Any questions before I show you the vendor end? Because I want to show you how a vendor can see contracts in the system.
No, we're good.
Okay.
Hey, Shannon, is that a feature of the copy the contract? Is that a feature that y'all are considering?
Let me look into it for you and see if it's a feature that we're going to have, or if maybe there's something I need to turn on and I just wasn't aware of it. But I'll double check for you, and then that's something I'll also get back to you on.
But because that would be huge in the fact that, you know, not having to recreate the wheel or recreate the duplication of effort or whatever.
Yeah. Let's see, I'm getting an error, so maybe I won't be able to show you from that standpoint. But if I go to the search tab as a vendor and contracts, it brings me to the contract agency section where I can search for all the agencies that are using the contracts management tool here. The vendor can search for a name or a region, but basically when they come in, they can view contracts. So for instance, the company BidSync, if they had any visible contracts, I'd be able to view those here. Let's see if any of these are holding contracts. we're in a sales environment, so it might not show any, but if there were any contracts visible, they would be able to see that data here. So remember during our training where I said, if you do not want the contract to be visible, select that private box. And if you do not want contract documents to be visible, select private. That will make it so it doesn't show up here for the vendor to view. So again, the vendor can see everybody that's using the contracts management tool, and they can view the contracts that they have if there's any that have been made public here. So that kind of covers all of the details within creating a contract, managing a contract, creating a contract off of a solicitation, and creating contract clauses. Is there any questions that I can answer for you? So we just covered everything under the contract section.
Okay.
Okay, so it sounds like I have a few questions I need to get back to you on the notifications. Does it send a notification to the vendor? And then a note to see about a copy feature, if that's a functionality that's going to be coming out.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, any questions before we jump off, Andre, or any comments you want to make?
Hold on just a second, Shannon. There was one thing you and I were talking about this morning that we said we wanted to ask Shannon about. Do you remember? Do you remember what it was? If not, we'll go back through our notes, and it might just be one
Okay.
question we can ask you this afternoon.
Yeah, feel free to ask me any questions. We have another training session, so we can also address questions there if we need to. Or if it's not a question for the group, then you can email me or we can call each other later. Okay, well, thank you for attending today's training session. Andre, I will try to get these training sessions loaded so that you have access to them today, so that you can distribute them out to your team. For those users that attended this training session today, you will need to come in and in the training environment, start accessing the contract tool, create a contract, review a contract, edit a contract, create contract clauses for fun, create a contract off of solicitation. So kind of run through the scenarios that we did today to make sure that you're familiar with the contract management tool. And then that will also help you in maybe identifying some internal processes that need to be discussed a little bit more. But today's training will hopefully be available to you by the end of the day if you need to re-watch it. As I mentioned on every training, you can come to the support portal, create a login if you haven't already done so. But once you log in, you'll have access to all the user manuals. And there is user manuals on creating a contract. So creating a contract, you'll want to view those things. Keep in mind that we have two different contract management tools. We have a contract Lite, which is what the city of Tallahassee is using. And we have a full contract management tool, CLM tool. And so you might find some training guides related to that CLM tool, but this creating contracts one that I just pulled up, which was first on the list, is the exact contract management tool you will be using, and a training guide or user guide on how to create a contract. So if you need any help, please use the support portal. It's great to use to find information. You will also have the training, and then once you are live, you will have access to a support team who can help you with any questions as well. So if there's no other questions, then we can go ahead and end our training session for today.
I do have one more question.
Okay.
In reference to our training yesterday for the evaluation, I know we have a sliding scale, and we had put like 1 to 10, but
Yeah.
it's a sliding scale of 6.1, 7.3, or whatever. Can we
Yeah.
limit those to whole numbers?
No, there's not a way to limit the user to whole numbers.
Okay,
It does accept any number string within the limits that you've set, whether it's 1 to 5 or 1 to 10 or 1 to 15 or 1 to 20. It will
Okay.
accept any numbers.
okay, thank you. Just thought I'd ask.
Okay. Yeah.
We can only reference that on the RFQ, RFP procedures for the bids.
Yeah. Yeah, you could definitely do that within the description of the evaluation. Say that they only can enter whole numbers.
Okay. That'll work.
All right, well, thank you so much.
Okay. Well, thank you for your time, and I will speak with you later today for our view-only training.
Okay, thanks.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.
All right,
Bye-bye.
bye.